Hello guys, we're going to start today with the week's vocabulary. First word is crumbled. Crumbled is when something breaks into small pieces. This is past tense, so broke into small pieces. The old brick wall had crumbled over the years. It shows a brick wall. This picture is not very clear, but it shows a brick wall. If you're looking in your book, we're on page 120 in the reading writing workshop. You can pause the video and get your book and come back. See, there's a brick wall here and it has broken and fallen into pieces over the years. Okay, so it has crumbled. Our next word is droughts. Droughts are long periods of dry weather when there's no rain. Okay, because of the lack of rain, farmers' crops died during the droughts, a long period without rain. Ecosystem. Oops. Ecosystem. I'm sure you've taken this in science. An ecosystem is all the living and non-living things in an area. All living and non-living things in an area. A reef ecosystem can be disrupted if you remove one species that lives in it. Okay? So the ecosystem is all the animals and plants that live in this area. It says living and non-living things. All right, extinct. Extinct means that something no longer exists. It used to be alive, and now there are no more like it. It is extinct, no longer exists. The American buffalo was hunted so much that it almost became extinct. People hunted the buffalo so much, they killed so many, that there were so few left, they were almost extinct. Almost none were left, okay? All right, next word. Flourished. Flourished. Flourished is kind of like the opposite of extinct. Extinct means no longer exist, and flourished means that something is thriving, meaning that it is growing strongly. Um, the sunflowers grew tall and flourished in the rich soil. That means that they grew very well in the rich soil. Flourished means to thrive. Thrive means to live in a strong way, not weak, not threatened. All right, next word is fragile. Something that is fragile is delicate and it breaks easily. Okay, so Tom held the nest carefully because he was afraid the fragile eggs might break. The eggs are delicate and can break easily. They are fragile. When you see boxes and people ship stuff, they write fragile on the side when there are things made of glass inside so that they don't throw the boxes and break them. Next word, imbalance. Imbalance is when something is not in balance. Remember, we took the prefix "im" and it means not. So it is something that is not in balance, something that is not equal, something that is not secure. Okay? Too much algae created an imbalance in the pond's ecosystem. See all the green stuff in the water around him? This is too much algae. All right, ripples. Ripples are small waves. See how the water here is kind of moving out away from the dog where he jumped in circles? These are ripples. The water ripples around the swimming dog. You know when you throw a rock in the water and the water kind of spreads out in circles? Those are ripples. All right, let's read Rescuing Our Reefs. This is on page 122 in the Reading Writing Workshop. Again, if you don't have your book, please get your book and come back. Rescuing Our Reefs. Sitting on the side of the boat, the photographer fixes her scuba tank and mask. This is her scuba tank, and this is her mask. She waves to a man in a fishing boat. Then she dives backwards into the clear waters of the Florida Keys. She swims, breathing through her regulator. A large, colorful coral reef is laid out before her eyes. Sea anemones, red hindfish, Gouty parrotfish, yellow angelfish, and other animals ignore her as they go about their business. Life in this reef has flourished and grown. That means everything that's living there is living there strongly, no threats. Everything is healthy, and there are good numbers of them, so everybody is living well. Connections. The photographer knows the plants and animals in a reef ecosystem need each other to survive. Remember, we said not living and non living things in a place? Reefs are made up of billions of tiny animals called coral polyps. Plant like algae live inside the coral. If you remember the movie Nemo, you saw many of these things in the movie where Nemo lived. There was algae, there was coral, there were anemones. The algae, sorry, plant like algae live inside the coral. The algae uses a process called photosynthesis to turn energy from the sun into food for themselves in the coral. I'm sure that you've taken photosynthesis in science. Algae are a part of the food chain called producers. Producers make their own energy. The photographer sees a blue and yellow parrotfish nibbling at the coral. She takes a picture. The parrotfish breaks apart the coral to get to the algae-filled polyps inside. In a food chain, the parrotfish is a consumer. Consumers cannot produce their own energy. As the parrotfish eats the algae, energy is passed through the food chain. In the distance, the photographer notices the long silver body of a barracuda lurking. The seagrass ripples in the current, swaying back and forth. It almost hides the hungry predator. She snaps a photo and swims on. It says that the seagrass ripples in the current. Remember, we talked about how it makes small waves in the water? Coral bleaching. The photographer shoots more photos as she swims. The reef must have looked like this hundreds of years ago. But then she stops and stares at a big area of bleached white coral. Once colorful, the whitish coral now looks like the broken pieces of a crumbled castle. So the coral has broken down into many little pieces. It looks like a crumbled castle. Coral depends on a natural balance to stay healthy. Climate change and pollution can cause an imbalance. So the change in the climate and pollution can cause an imbalance. That means that things are not in balance. Things are not steady or secure. Some areas have dried up from droughts while others have had more rain. Remember, droughts are long periods of time without rain. Too much sun and warmer ocean temperatures can cause coral bleaching. If pollution gets into the water or the water gets too warm, the relationship between the coral and algae breaks down. The algae stops making food. The coral ejects the algae. The algae are what give the coral its color. The coral loses its color. It starves because it needs the algae to make food for it. Many plants and animals depend on the coral for food and shelter. As more and more coral reefs die, many animals and plants that live in these reefs may become extinct. Remember, extinct means no longer exist. All of them die out and they no longer are alive. The beautiful reef the photographer had seen earlier would resemble the white, crumbling reef before her. Balancing act. She turned and swam back to the boat. She turned and swam back to the boat. Later today, she would send her photographs to the National, I'm sorry, she would send her photographs to the Nature Conservancy. It is an organization that works to rescue our fragile reefs. Remember, fragile is something easily broken, delicate. Scientists there are trying to rebuild the reefs by attaching small pieces of staghorn coral to concrete blocks. Staghorn coral is used to grow new coral. Once the coral grows, the blocks are planted in the reef. So they're using it to replace the coral that is dying out. The photographer hopes her pictures will help spread the word. They show the relationship between pollution, climate change, and coral bleaching. She breaks through the water's surface and climbs into the boat. I've got some good shots of the healthy reef and the sick reef, she shouts to her partner. Once aboard, she immediately begins putting her photos on her laptop. Okay, let's take a look at the literary terms for the week. Summarize. Okay, our first word is summarize. When we summarize, we take all of our information and we tell the main and the most important parts, and we reduce the information. So, like, say for instance, you go to the library and you read about the coral and you write down the most important notes on a piece of paper to remember when you leave the library. You have summarized the information by only taking the most important parts. Okay, so summarize is to retell the most important details in a paragraph or a section of text. Next, we have main idea and details. We've done this before. The main idea is the most important idea that an author presents in a paragraph or a section of text. So it's the most important idea that the author presents. Key details give more information to support the main idea. All right, so if we say going to the beach is fun, and then we say we ate snacks on the beach, we played in the water, we built a sandcastle. We built a sandcastle, we ate snacks on the beach, and we played in the water are all details that give more information about why going to the beach is fun, our main idea. All right, narrative nonfiction is our genre for the week. Narrative nonfiction tells a story. It presents facts about a topic. So it's giving real information, true information. Facts are things that can be proved. It tells it in a story format, like what we just read, and it includes text features. The text features we're going to talk about this week are, again, headings. Headings are very important, and they help us when we're reading to understand what we're going to read about before we even start reading it. We also have flowchart. Let's go back and I'll show you what they both are. Here we have a heading called coral bleaching. Here we have a heading, balancing act. So here we know that this area is going to explain to us how the coral is bleached. Here they're going to talk about how they're going to balance something. We're not sure what they're going to balance from the title, but we know about balancing something. This is a flowchart. Okay? If you notice in the flowchart, there are arrows that point along the way. See, here's an arrow here pointing to the second picture, to the third, and to the last picture. It says here energy source, then goes to a producer, to a consumer, and to another consumer. This is a food chain that shows the transfer of energy from the sun to the consumer. Okay, so the sunlight makes the flowers. The consumer, I guess this is a plant. I can't tell from the picture very well. This is a consumer. A consumer means it takes energy from something. So this consumer takes energy. I can't tell if it's a plant or a bug. Either way, it takes its energy from this plant, and this shark takes its energy from, I'm going to assume this is some type of plant or bug. I'm sorry, some type of bug, something alive that the shark eats. Let me see if I can see the picture in the book and tell. Just 1 second. All right, let's see. Well, oh yes, it shows a picture of a smaller fish. So the energy, the plant takes its energy from the sun. The smaller fish, this is a small fish right here. A smaller fish takes its energy from the plant. The shark then eats the smaller fish, taking its energy from the little fish. Okay, so the flow chart has arrows that shows us the steps. All right, let's go back and look at the definitions for, whoops, for headings. Headings are what tell us what each section of text is about. A flow chart shows information in a visual way, okay? So it often has arrows to show the information. All right, next we have context clues. Remember, when we're reading and we don't know the meaning of a word, we can use the words around that word, like the phrase before it, the sentence near it, the sentence it's in, the words near it, to help us understand the meaning of words that we do not know, words that are not familiar. Okay, all right. I think that's it. Yeah, that's it for today. I will see you in the next video. Please write your literary terms down with your vocabulary. I'll go back over what you should write. Summarize. When you retell the most important details in a paragraph or a section of text. Main idea, the most important idea that an author presents in a paragraph or a section of text. Key details give important information to support the main idea. Narrative nonfiction tells a story that presents facts about a topic. Headings are used to tell what a section of text is mostly about. And a flow chart shows information, usually using arrows to point how the cycle works. Okay? All right. Last, we have context clues. When you use the words, phrases, and sentences near a word you don't know to figure it out. Okay, please add these to your notebook under literary terms. You can go back and play the video again and pause it to write the meanings for the literary terms. See you next time. Bye-bye.